Good evening and hello again, everybody. It is time for the two-man game here on Claibs Online. I'm Bob Ramsey. That is my partner, Matt Rocchio. It's been some crazy times in college basketball. Let's jump right in as schedules are changing all over the place. But the Billikens, after a 2-week layoff, finally got a game in on Sunday against one of the league contenders, the Richmond Spiders, and played a pretty darn good basketball game. And in it, Yuri Collins was dominant against one of the other great point guards in the league, if not the country, in Gilliard. And it was a terrific battle, and both had moments. But in the end, I would say Yuri Collins just about dominated the game. And in fact, in 3 games, he is the conference player of the week and just putting up ridiculous numbers, scoring. It's something like 17 points, 12 assists, 9 rebounds, something like that over the last 3 games for Yuri Collins.
Yeah, he was absolutely incredible. I mean, anytime you can put up a 24, 8, and 6 line on just 17 shots from the field, I was blown away by Yuri's scoring. Obviously, when his shots are falling like that early, it changes the complexion of the game. I thought it was interesting that Richmond stuck to their guns pretty much the entire game, and we're going under pretty much every screen that was being set for Yuri, despite what he was able to do for him. And I think a lot of people want to focus on the shooting of Yuri Collins, but the big thing that really came out to me and what I've noticed anytime Yuri has a good scoring game, and watch for this next time because it's fascinating and it's one of those innate things that you see when a player is truly just an incredible basketball player and their basketball IQ is out of the gym. His ability to pick his spots when he notices on the fast break that if he dips his shoulder, whether it's because the big guy hasn't gotten back or it's because he's got the big guy right in front of him on his heels, to pick his spots, to drop his shoulder and attack in those moments, that's one of the things for Yuri that keeps jumping out to me this season, and it kept happening in the Richmond game. A big thing that Travis Ford talked about, I think this might have been last night with you on Camel X, was how they didn't play slow the last couple of games on purpose. They weren't getting defensive stops. And I thought that was the biggest thing, that anytime they got a stop against Richmond, they were doing something positive, and it was because Yuri was either getting downhill or he was finding a pass.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I really respect all the writers, podcasters, and broadcasters who cover the Billikens on a daily basis. Getting the word out is what we're all about. And if you love the Billikens like I do, that's really what you want. But there was a thread for, going back a few weeks because we were off 2 weeks, that the Billikens in some of the games they frittered away at the end was because they slowed down on purpose, almost like in football playing a prevent defense, and it's just not true. So I'm often wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong on that one. And I think you're right about that. And I think sometimes all of our analysis, us included, becomes a little too myopic. The other team's trying to do something too. And to that end, I thought in yesterday's game, the second half, Chris Mooney, who is a terrific coach, the Richmond coach, he's really good. He did try to make some changes, but one thing he didn't change, he had made a decision, and I think teams are smart to do so. We're not going to let Gibson Jimerson beat us. So he made the decision to keep Gilliard on Gibby, to deny him the ball, to fight through screens, over screens, make his life miserable, and not let him beat the Billikens. He still had an average scoring game, but in doing so, it opened up other things where he wasn't guarding Yuri Collins nearly as much in the second half, and the Billikens only had 2 turnovers in the second half. And I think that was a critical number, and the way they got to the number was critical in that victory.
Oh, yeah, I love the turnover thing. Really did jump out to you when you rewatch that second half. It's just how often and how good they were with the ball. How often the first half they were throwing dumb, lazy passes at times that were getting picked off by mostly Gilliard because that's what the man's known for. But it really was a much tighter game in the second half, and that led to all facets of the game being tighter. You know, when you're not throwing dumb passes, the fast break works a little bit better. You know, your play sets work a little bit better. And on the Gilliard point, you know, he's kind of one of the debates about him is that he's more known for kind of hunting passing lanes than being an on-ball steals guy, and that's why some people, you know, knock his now NCAA record. But that was just it was on display there too, because it wasn't about him being an on-ball defender on Uri. It was about constantly harrying the passing lane from Uri to Gibson Jimerson. And I love the point you made about Gibson Jimerson. I'm usually the first person when I see a player take as many shots as points they scored. I'm usually the very first person to point out how that was a rough game, that was a rough night, and how their efficiency might have hurt the team. But watching Gibson Jimerson these last couple of games where he's had a few of these, his perseverance to continue to be a decoy or something that the defense has to react to, despite the fact that he is having an inefficient night, and understanding that right now with his part on this offense, without a Javonte Perkins, he has to shoot the ball even when he's not having a good night because the way the defenses are going to shift around him. And so kudos to him being a guy who, you know, coming in, you know, his first year was so efficient. And last year, despite the problems SLU had, being able to work off the ball, he was so efficient as well. And then this year, he's just going to have to accept the fact that there's going to be games where he's going to get possessions and he's going to get shots and he's not going to get a good look. So it's kind of a non-box score, you know, non-numbers related thing. But I do have to give Gibson credit because I have to imagine in today's day and age, when you know that going to the next level, whether it be Europe or what have you, means being an efficient shooter and an efficient player in this type of game, for him to step up and understand that sometimes I'm going to have a little bit of a rougher game so other things can happen around me. I think that's kind of what we've seen the last couple of games with him where he hasn't been as efficient, but the offense as a whole has been.
Yeah, and one final thing on Richmond, who it's a team for which I have great respect. I already mentioned Mooney and their club. They've been together, this group, 5 full years. 5. I'm going to throw a theory at you, and we haven't talked about it, so you may want to revisit it after you give me your gut reaction. I'm wondering if this team, this group peaked like 2 years ago when they're in the middle of this 3-year run. They have nothing new to show anybody. That's not a knock on them. I don't blame them. I mean, it's a terrific team. They could come back, and I don't want this to come back and bite the Billikens and then therefore me right in the butt. No, there are no surprises, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they do what they do. They do it very well. They're a good team, but are they better than they were 2 years ago? Are they better than they were last year? I think they are who they are, a really good team, but they may not be capable of being a great team. And I don't have anything against them. I'm really not taking a shot. I'm just trying to tell you what I think I see.
I think the answer to that question is the exact same answer as this question, which is how much more has Tyler Burton improved as, you know, and now being, you know, 23 years old. That's the big thing. You know, we talk about it, and I think sometimes when we talk about the NBA game, we over accentuate the different, you know, a guy being 20 or 19 as opposed to a guy being 22. But when you talk about a guy who's improving his game on the college level while being 22 or 23, you do have to be reasonable at the fact that there's times where he's playing against 19-year-olds, and there's a difference there, and there's how the body's going to develop. So looking at the fact that Burton is 22, 23 years old, is his improvement enough for you to, you know, is his improvement enough for them to go to the next level? Because with a guy like him, yes. I think that's the question, because everything else is what it is, and it hasn't changed. But Burton being a guy who can be a 20-point scorer potentially, you know, especially in conference play this season, is that the level that takes them up a notch?
Yeah, that's a great point. I really like that point a lot. And then just for fun and archaic reference lost on younger viewers, and that is talking about, we mentioned the other day, our great friend, Billiken all-time great Joe Wiley, who played in the 60s and only got to play 3 years. And Grant Golden is in his 6th season of playing college basketball. Can you imagine some of the other guys in the 60s, Joe Wiley, and really everybody, nobody got to play their freshman year. It was against the rules. Can you think of the numbers that some of these greats would have put up with doubling the amount of years? It's just crazy. So when I'm long gone and you're sitting in the old man chair over here on Claibs Online, and you can hearken back, and when somebody says, well, look, so-and-so put up 2,500 points, and say, yeah, it's a completely, they had the 6-year era. They had the COVID era, and it changed everything. I promise you there's going to be a whippersnapper 15, 20 years from now and say, oh, yeah. Oh, well, between 2017 and 2023, that was clearly the best era of college basketball. You will be able to say, aha, wait a minute, not so fast.
So one of the reasons why being a numbers nerd and liking basketball is so cohesive is that basketball is the only sport where a per game average is programmed into fans to be the regular way to think about a stat.
Great point.
And that's the big thing is a lot of people are like, well, these are totals and these are totals. And that's why I've always had no problem mentioning Yuri Collins' assist mark that he's eventually going to break its slew because he's going to do it, end of his junior year, even with the crazy COVID weird stuff.
Yeah.
But when you look at and that's why, but basketball, look at pure per game because that's telling you everything you need to know. Because if a guy played 180 games or a guy played 65 games, it doesn't matter. We can see it there. So that's why I actually kind of like these debates in basketball because there is an easier way to look at it. Because in football and in baseball, other than batting average and some of the slash line stuff in baseball, still a lot of the counting stats are all gross, but the breaking it down in the per game, it makes it so much better with basketball. It's one of the reasons why I've always been drawn to the sport, honestly. So nerdy, but it's true.
That's why we're on the show together. I toss them up there and you hit them out of the ballpark. Well done, sir. Yeah, very good. As we move forward, the Billikens do not have a game on Wednesday. That LaSalle game got postponed, and now the Atlantic 10, just a few minutes ago, actually, announced the rescheduling of the 2 games the Billikens had missed. They will go to UMass on January 20th, and LaSalle will get their game here in St. Louis on February 15th. So those 2 games fit in, and I went and looked at the schedule, and it doesn't create any schedule issues. There are some breaks in the length of the schedule that allowed the Atlantic 10 to move those games into some gaps, and it worked out great. The only unusual thing is that the Billikens will play UMass back-to-back, home and home.
Oh, okay.
That's the only crazy thing.
Now.
Yeah, that's the only crazy thing. So it'll be home and home with UMass later this month.
And I do think it's fair to note this as well, because this is one thing I was wondering. The LaSalle game breaks up an 8-day break between Dayton at home at Chaffetz and the Bonnies coming to Chaffetz as well. So that it's a little bit interesting in that they kind of get an extra time between the Bonnies game now because of a postponement, but then on the other way on the back end, it's coming right in the middle of what was probably going to be a pretty necessary week that you were going to like that you had. And so that's going to be something to watch for come February is there something a little bit different? How differently does Travis have to deal with that 8-day span now, it being a 3-week span between 2 of the best teams in the A-10 and now just, having to throw LaSalle there in the middle.
May I be the first to throw out a cliche? I don't think anybody's analyzed it yet. I haven't, while we've been talking, I've been on Twitter. LaSalle, the 15th. Trap game.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, absolutely. You beat Davidson. Oh, that's all we're going to hear for that. Oh, that's all we're going to hear for 2 days. That's all we're going to hear is trap game. That's such a good point. Yep. Yeah, put it in the lexicon now. That's going to be up there.
But here's and for those who don't really follow the kind of BS jargon that we're always talking about. What we're talking about is you gear up a great rivalry, although Dayton has kind of dominated recently. You play Dayton at home, it'll be sold out or close to it. And then you had St. Bonaventure, the league favorite. So 2 huge games of the week in between. You get to really prepare for St. Bonaventure. Now LaSalle, near the bottom, no disrespect, fair, right? Near the bottom of the league. Yeah. So you come off Dayton, win or lose, you're going to be jacked up, right? Emotionally, very intense game. Then you come in, can you regroup for that team, knowing that St. Bonaventure's on the other side? That is why coaches and coaching and attention to detail and practice, these are the kind of weeks coming up in mid-February. That's why it's so important.
Speaking of attention to detail, my point still stands. I'm still very correct about everything I said. I just flipped. It's Bonaventure's, LaSalle, then Davidson. My apologies. I got the long LaSalle. It's Dayton, LaSalle, Bonaventure, LaSalle, Davidson. But the big thing that got changed is that instead of having a week between the Bonnies and Davidson, it's now LaSalle. I just wanted to make sure I had that right, because I said Davidson, then I said Dayton. I got the D's confused. So it's Bonnies, and then LaSalle, and then Davidson, which obviously after their game against Bama and their start so far looks to like they're right now the most dangerous team in the A-10.
And they lose Kellen Grady to the transfer portal for his grad year, and they may be better. We see that sometimes. We'll talk about them as we get closer, but they are absolutely a legit contender in the Atlantic 10. So the good thing about that trap game combo is that those games are at home. Mm-hmm. But you're at home, so that's a big help.
Yeah, make things a little bit easier. One quick point I wanted to bring up before we moved on completely from the Richmond game, which was the lineup change at the start. And the one I want to focus more in on is Jordan Nesbitt moving to the bench. He obviously had a great game, 12 points coming off the bench. And I thought for a lot of the minutes, it looks like what he was doing, what Travis Ford was doing was when Uri would go to the bench and DeAndre Jones would come off, either Jordan had been the substitution prior to that, or Jordan was the very next substitution. So a lot of times when Uri was out, Jordan Nesbitt was on the floor and continued in that secondary ball handler role, taking some of the possessions away from DeAndre Jones. I thought that was a great role for him. He continues to be there's no other way to describe him. He's looking like a young Gerald Wallace, the way he flies in for rebounds and steals. Just complete reckless abandon. He doesn't care about the foul or what might happen to his ligaments, joints, and bones. He's flying in there because the ball's free. And I absolutely love that mentality on defense. And he's starting to really put together the offensive game a little bit more. The handles, the finishing, his three-point shot, it was late in the third. Uri drives and kicks to Janez to go up 65-58. And Tyler Burden was playing tight on Janez. He takes one step inside on the Uri drive. And that was all Janez needed. The load and the shot was so quick. That release is deadly, and I can't wait to see more of it. I thought Janez as a defender, as an on-ball scorer, as an off-the-ball player, overall, I really like what we saw from him coming off the bench.
It's coming in small increments, but it gets better all the time. You can see it, as you pointed out, and his contributions to the game. And the coaches show on radio yesterday on KMOX, Travis Ford was effusive in his praise of Nesbitt and some of the other guys that showed toughness. And I know we're going to transition to talking about Travis's conversation yesterday anyway. Travis broke down how he defines toughness, and I can paraphrase it all, but basically talking about it's not just a mean big, jacked up guy who's throwing people around. He thinks it's more on the mental side, the willingness to beat fatigue, to fight through fatigue, to sprint the court even after you've been out there for a long stretch and still full sprint to get back, full sprint to get on offense, to uh, handle your responsibilities defensively on blocking out, on going to the rim, on doing all those things, those little things that don't get noticed in the box score.
Yeah.
The mental toughness is what Travis really values. And I thought that was, he talked at length about that on his coach's show on KMOX last night. And I thought it was really well said. And I really like that philosophy.
By the way, the coach's show on KMOX, I got to catch about 15 minutes, about the last 15 minutes or so. Any other big takeaways you were able to get from Coach Ford, being able to break it down with him for an hour yesterday?
Well, there was a lot of hand wringing and teeth gnashing, and I think we've just got to get over that. There are teams tonight, big teams, big games. Well, for instance, Kansas State is playing Baylor, right? They got 8 guys. Their head coach and one of their top assistants are all out. They got to play. So, again, we report what's going on. Here's the lineup. Here's who's not playing. But what led to the weird lineup on Sunday for the Billikens was COVID. Travis did talk a lot about, had a couple of days they could only play 2-on-2 basketball. Then it got to 3-on-3, then to 4-on-4, and really only got to play 5-on-5 for a day, maybe kind of a day and a half-ish. And in fact, didn't know that TJ Hargrove was going to play in the game until Sunday morning. So,
I had a feeling that was the Nesbitt one. I honestly thought might have just been a tactical one. Hargrove felt like one that was a switch around because of COVID. But again, I could be completely wrong in the Nesbitt one.
Yeah, I think, and I didn't ask name for name. I thought it was pretty obvious, though, when you piece all the information together, that the guys who didn't get to practice very much didn't start it, but then they got in and got into the flow of the game. And it was just kind of what he does. If you're not able to practice, you usually don't get to start. Not a hard and fast rule, but a guideline for Travis Ford basketball.
Yeah, I love the way they're playing hard. Like I said, I think, by the way, talk about playing hard. About every metric, box plus minus, PER, things like that, offensive and defensive rating, net rating, things like that. Almost all of those say that this season Martin Linson has been the Billikens' best player. To go out and beat Richmond, with all that said, and then with certain guys having to play shorter shifts, what have you, changing up the starting lineup, and just not having Martin Linson at all against one of the best big men in the entire A10, I don't think it can't be understated how big of a win that was. And then you wrap in the 2-week hiatus with that. That really was an impressive win. I mean, Fred Thatch was just continuing incredibly important cog in the defense on this team. And anytime we're talking about a Travis Ford SLU team, defense is going to be crucial. Everything about this game really impressed me. Toughness, the way the offense was able to play, the way that Francis Okoro was able to settle down and be a productive player in the second half. Heck, I love just about every minute that Lucina Traore has given the Bills this season. I've been a fan of, and the Richmond game was no different.
Yeah, absolutely right. And Linson, for those who don't know, injured his leg 2 weeks ago, and it hasn't been called a high ankle sprain, but it's reacting timetable-wise kind of like a high ankle sprain that you see in football quite often, where, it's a sprained ankle, but it's lingering and lingering and lingering. Travis did say that it appears to be getting better day to day. They thought they maybe were really considering dressing him for Richmond, and they said no, because we don't want to exacerbate the problem. They think, now this was last night, so they will have had practice by the time you and I are talking. They think that there is an even chance that he could suit up against St. Bonaventure on Saturday.
I'd love to see it. I'd absolutely love to see it. A couple quick notes I pulled in doing a little numbers check on SLU, because this fascinates me, because this is the offense. I really think it's been so impressive, but we haven't really gotten. I don't think we really hammered through. You can check, the Ken Palm rating is 68th, but this offense really has been extremely impressive. I was looking at Basketball Reference today. They are top 100 Rammer in every offensive category except for 2-point percentage, 3-point rate, so 3 points they take and 3 points they attempt, and turnovers. Everything else, field goal percentage, field goal rate, free throw percentage, 3-point percentage, assists, points, offensive rebounds, free throw percentage. They are in the top 100 in college basketball in everything but those 4 other categories. It's extremely impressive what the offense is doing, again, without their best offensive player for the entire season so far, plus being out with certain injuries with guys like Martin Linson missing 1 game, obviously against Richmond. You had Francis Okoro missing a game earlier in the season because he was feeling a little, I think he was a little under the weather. And so just looking at all of those numbers, and heck, one of those numbers that they're not great at is, I don't think it's even something that teams are stopping them from shooting threes. It's just not it's not a huge part of their game. So if you throw 3 points and 3 points attempt out of there, the only thing that you can quantify could be doing better that could help them, that they're maybe not executing at the highest level, is they're 150th in the nation at 2-point percentage. They need to finish their layups. We've talked about that one. And then they're 208th in the league of turnovers. We've talked about that. Everything else is a top third in the entire country, top 100. A lot of those are top 50s. Heck, free throw rate and free throw attempts is still top 5 in the country. It really is impressive what this offense is doing, not just against Richmond, this entire season when you look at the lack of Javonte Perkins and everything else. And I think a big part of it has been, other than some of those bad games, Yuri Collins is just, if not the best, one of the best point guards and playmakers in the entire nation. Period. And when he gets going, this offense gets going.
Period. No doubt about it. That's some good stuff there. I'll tell you what, before we run out of time, let's switch up because we'll preview St. Bonaventure later in the week as the Billikens go to play in Olean, New York. And a quick tease, they're so good. I don't love necessarily going there. I'm a big fan of Mark Schmidt, their head coach, and it is the best broadcast location in college basketball. I love doing games there. It's the best spot.
Well, there you go.
And I'll explain that
Fingers
later
crossed.
on Friday. But it's a lot of fun. Fingers crossed. We everything should be good. So on the pro side, let me start with a personal shout out to my friend Rob Fisher and our colleague on Claibs Online. For those who don't know, Rob Fisher is a native St. Louisan. He cut his teeth at 590 AM radio in the 90s. He went on to work in Las Vegas. It's when the big all sports networks were going all over the country. He ended up working talk radio in Memphis, and finally he is the full-time Grizzlies television sideline reporter. Does a marvelous job. He's a lot of fun. He's well respected all around the NBA. Well, COVID has struck Memphis, the Memphis Grizzlies. Last week, he filled in for the radio play-by-play guy and the television play-by-play guy last night. Got grade A, blue ribbon marks in both games. I was not shocked, by the way. I knew he'd be great. The Grizzlies fans have marveled at his ability to do everything for the Grizzlies, and I wanted to do an official tip of the cap here to Rob Fisher and what he's done for the Grizzlies and stepped up for them and been the brilliant professional that I've always known him to be. He is great, and I wanted to applaud him for those efforts.
Yeah, I love what he did, and I like this tweet. The guy who actually, it's crazy. It's one of the closest ones, and the radio station I work for, 590, carries the games, and so there are already some St. Louis connections. Then you have Rob Fisher, and then the guy who does his pregame and postgame shows, Chris Vernon, also has some St. Louis ties. He's one of the biggest Cardinals and Blues fans you'll ever meet. He started his radio career interning at I think it was KFNS when he was younger. So even Chris Vernon has some St. Louis connections. He tweeted out yesterday, this was incredible because you talk about all the things he's done. In 4 straight games, Rob Fisher was TV play-by-play, TV analyst, TV sideline reporter, and radio play-by-play. 4 different jobs across 4 different games. That is so impressive. So, yeah, big ups to Rob Fisher. You love to see that from a guy from a St. Louisan like that. But, I mean, he's just killing it. And also, I loved this too. He got to call that John Morant dunk.
Yeah.
From last night, which was thunderous. And, I mean, if you want to talk about a run of basketball to get called in to do play-by-play and being an analyst, I can't imagine the last 2 weeks of Memphis Grizzlies basketball being anything better in the I mean, outside of like a LeBron run or something, or a Steph Curry run in like 2016, this has been 2 of the most fun weeks for an NBA team that I can remember.
And let me say this, and Morant's just been back for a little while, but the way he and Bane are playing in the backcourt, I think and sure, they're basically a new backcourt, right? And so we don't know how they're going to stand the test of time and the grind of the league and all those kinds of things. I'm just saying with this small snapshot, that backcourt tandem, especially with the Warriors still not completely healthy, they're as good as anybody.
Sorry, Rammer, I didn't catch that last thing you said. You're cutting out a little bit in and out. I apologize. Yeah, I'm not getting you right now. I'm sorry.
In this small,
I'm not hearing you. I'm sorry.
You can't hear me now?
Yeah, I'm not hearing you. I don't know. I apologize. I'm not sure if this is a problem on my end or if we lost connection. I apologize, Rammer. I seem to have lost connection with you a little bit here.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
Well, that's a bummer. I apologize to everyone tuning in. We seem to have a little bit of a technical issue as we're trying to break down the Grizzlies here again. Big shouts to our friend Rob Fisher. You saw it there, Rammer. Rammer's giving it a tip tap. You finally literally tap. Your volume came in as you were telling me to wrap up.
Okay. What I was saying was, and I wanted to get your thoughts. It's a short snapshot in time in a long grind of a season. I get it. But the way Morant and Bane are playing together now, they're as good as anybody in the league, right?
Yeah. If those two are playing, it's one of the it's I think you can confidently say it's the best young guard tandem in the NBA right now. I mean, because if those guys are playing and if Jaren Jackson Jr. is down low, that's a big 3 that can win with almost anybody, and they're proving it. I mean, John Conchar, Conchar is starting games, and they're pulling guys off the street practically, and they're still winning basketball games. It's been so impressive what Memphis is doing, and obviously, we can't help but tip cap to all the St. Louis connections because there's also, of course, Blake Ahern is on the coaching staff.
Right.
You might have mentioned that when you muted out for a little bit. I apologize if you did. But Blake Ahern's on the coaching staff, and so many St. Louis connections, but also just an incredible story that the national NBA is really starting to take notice of because you can't not. They're playing right now against the Cavaliers. Jaren Jackson Jr. already has double digits in the first half. Ja, I think, just hit double digits, and Desmond Bane is sitting at 8, so he's about to hit double digits in the first half. So the big 3 we're talking about in line is get about 20 pieces each, and again, against the Cavaliers. So the Grizzlies keep on rolling, and it's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, and our other St. Louis connection in the league, Jordan Goodwin, didn't play last night. His 10 days are up. I didn't see news if he got sent back today, and that's okay if he did. He was fine. He did what they needed. He filled a gap for him. I was told actually by Travis Ford, who talks to him almost every day by phone. Been a great teammate, and everybody respects him. And we haven't seen the last of Jay Good in the league, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was one of those things where the Wizards have been a little bit luckier than other teams in their COVID protocols and kind of that. The big wide open gaps of 15, 20 minutes of playing time that some of these 10-day contract players have gotten just wasn't going to open up on that Wizards roster, unfortunately for him. But he was able to show his NBA team what he has. They know he's still playing really well for the Capital City Go-Go. So like you said, and like we've said multiple times, when you have that kind of length, when you have that kind of defense, and if you can continue to develop the shot the way he clearly is, he's going to find his way onto basketball teams, NBA or not, that are going to be paying him good money for a long time.
Any other NBA notes before we wrap?
No, I think there's a couple of good games. There's a couple of good games tonight. Anytime the Suns are playing, I want to get it out and let people know they're playing tonight against the Pelicans. That's going to be a shellacking if you just want to watch Chris Paul throw 18 assists with like 1 turnover. That'll be a good game for it. And I say that really not even insulting the Pelicans because Chris Paul just does that to great teams, but it's a higher chance against a team like the Pelicans. So you can watch that one tonight after we sign off. That'll be a good one. And then the Mavericks and Golden State Warriors tomorrow night, as well as the Raptors and the Bucks. The Raptors, watch out. Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam is coming back. That's the big dude. Pascal Siakam was so good in that championship run as a key cog alongside Lowry and Kawhi Leonard, but he completely fell off last year because of COVID and injuries. Well, he's had about a 2-week stretch now where he's back up to averaging around 20 points, 7 rebounds, 4.5, 5 assists. So if Pascal Siakam can continue to develop, if Fred VanVleet can continue to be the player he's become up there, the Raptors are going to be more dangerous. They're not going to touch the Bucks, and as down as I am on the Nets, I'm going to rise that up high. But a guy like Pascal Siakam in a market like Toronto, stepping back up and maybe being what they thought he was going to be 2 years ago, that's such a huge thing for that team, and it's been a lot of fun to see. By the way, again, talking about local ties, do not forget, you want to talk about a local kid, OG Anunoby, Jeff City High School is on the Raptors. He's been killing it this year. Big, small forward. Mizzou was never in on him for some inexplicable reason. That is the definition of the Kim Anderson era. But nonetheless, he's a Jeff City High School guy. So if you want to watch some Raptors games, you get a great story in Siakam, and you get a great local guy in OG Anunoby.
Great stuff, Rocc. We'll be back at the end of the week to set up the weekend for the Billikens against St. Bonaventure and everything that's going to be happening in a big weekend for the NBA. Everybody stay healthy. We want everybody to be back around to listen to us, throw rotten fruit at your computer when we say stuff that drives you crazy. That's okay. We know that's how the game works. Rocc, have a safe and healthy week.
If you're doing that, take a picture of your computer after you're done and send it to me. I want to know if you're doing that. Please, that would make me so happy if I'm pissing you off that much.
That's Matt Rocchio. I'm Bob Ramsey. Have a great week. This has been the Two-Man Game on Claibs Online.